Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Anything, Anywhere, Anytime, the launch party for proximity. How coming breakthroughs in just in time transform business, society, and daily life. By Rob Wolcott and Kaihan Krippendorff. I'm Sree Sreenivasan, CEO of Digimentors, and it's my honor to be here today to help facilitate this fabulous conversation for this fabulous, important, timely book by these two great thinkers. So please tell us where you're watching from. Please tell us what you're thinking about this topic. And if you read the book already, we'd love to hear that as well. Tell us how your Monday is going. We're going to record this, and this is going to be available for you to share with friends, family, and colleagues as well. This book has gotten fantastic blurbs from great folks, including Vivek Wadhwa, the entrepreneur and best-selling author, who says, winners aren't just disruptive or exponential. They make proximity happen. It's true to find a business. It's hard to find a business book with a truly new and pivotal perspective. And this book has it. So you want to get proximity available at all great bookstores. But now let me hand over to Kaihan.
Yes, well, thank you. And Sree, thank you so much for doing this. I know you just came back from a journey in the mountains of Peru, and you came back just to be here with us. I want to introduce Sree a little bit. Sree is he's the founder of Digimentors. He is the former chief digital officer for the New York City of New York, for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, for Columbia University. He's the president of the South Asian Journalists Association. He's been named by Fast Company as one of the 100 most most creative people in business, and by CDO Club as the most influential CDO. So it is really a thrill to have you here with us and to unpack this with you. I hope you don't ask us too challenging questions, but we will do our best. So thank you.
Thank you. That was very kind. My late mom would have loved that introduction. Folks, we see people coming in from all over. Thank you for being here. Julie is watching from Hamburg, and we have Kevin from Dallas. Looking forward to reading the new book. Matt is watching from Cheshire in the UK. Pablo is watching as well. Carla from Denver. This is so wonderful to have everyone here. I want you to know a little bit about our speakers, and then Kaihan's going to kick us off, and Rob are going to kick us off. Rob is co-founder and chair of the World Innovation Network, and he's an adjunct professor of innovation at the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. And Kaihan is the founder of Outthinker Network, a global think tank, and is a professional speaker. And he's had other books before, including Driving Innovation from Within, a guide to internal entrepreneurs. And Rob's many books include Grow from Within, Mastering Corporate Entrepreneurship, something that we could all learn, and Innovation with Michael Lippitz in 2009. So I think we can turn this over to Rob. I understand, Rob, that you started this idea, you presented the first idea in 2015 of proximity. So let's start.
Well, great, and thanks, Sree, for being here. It's really an honor. You're a great figure in the space of digital. But I do want to add one correction to the intro. We have lots of my friends and colleagues from global Kellogg community as well. So while I am an adjunct professor at the Booth School of Business at University of Chicago, I'm also an adjunct professor at the Kellogg School of Management, and I want to make sure that they know how much we love them.
Both schools. That's amazing, Rob. That says something about you, but also the collegiality that these two schools that do compete.
Oh, it's very collegial. There's great respect between them, but it also says about me, Sree, that I can't hold down a job. So maybe that's what it's telling me. But you said, where did this come from? I did talk about it for the first time in 2015 at an economist event in Chicago, and also at Phil Kotler's World Marketing Summit in Tokyo. But the idea, the genesis of the project started in 2014. I was at a tech conference, and a lot of our friends here today have been at a lot of tech conferences, and they might recall there was about a 10-year period years ago. Mercifully, this doesn't happen as much now, but there was about a 10-year period where every speaker at tech conference would have the same two slides. And the first one was Moore's Law. And by the way, let me be clear, Moore's law is extraordinary, visionary. I love it. It's wonderful, but you only need to hear about it like 100 times. You don't really need to see the same slide 105, 110. Anyway, so I started to get a little annoyed. And then that same speaker had a second slide that we all saw over and over again, which was something like, by the year 2025, 1 trillion devices will be connected. And I'm like, really, do we have, this is the wrong audience, by the way, if you guys don't already know that. So in any case, I was stewing inside and I thought, you know, we must be able to do better. So if we can discern a common underlying characteristic of digital and what makes digital fundamentally different from the industrial age, what an economist might call a general purpose tool, like electricity, steam, et cetera, then we can discern where the future's going. And that became proximity, because what we quickly recognized was that digital of all sorts, whether that's AI or a mobile app or a rooftop solar or 3D printing, they're all digitally enabled. What digital allows us to do is compress capabilities in smaller and smaller packages and distribute them all over the economy, ever closer to each moment in time and space. And so therefore, and this is not just that we should do it, it's a nice to have, this is where things are already going and where they will be going the rest of our careers. Digital pushes the creation of value ever closer to the moment of actual demand. And this is the direction of every industry the rest of our careers. And Kaihan and I don't just mean a little better supply chain. That's a nice thing. We literally mean brand new technology platforms, business models that encourage us to procrastinate, to wait as long as possible until there's an actual customer. And then you produce and provide for that customer right where and when it's needed. So that's proximity.
Yeah, and when I first heard the term proximity from Rob, and it was COVID hit. Suddenly, no speakers were speaking anywhere. There were no conferences, and everyone was at home learning to do Zoom. And we organized a virtual webinar event. 24 speakers over 24 hours. Rob was one of those, and the term proximity, which he spoke about for an hour, that was the most frequently cited in the chat and the most sticky. So, and when I started thinking about proximity, I started realizing that a lot of what we see that we're confused about, whether that is what's AI going to do, what does that have to do with distributed sustainable energy and the future of work and automotive and space, and these things are sort of like in different things, but with the proximity lens, what I started seeing is actually they all plug into one thing. And that makes it a very useful unifying concept to help us make sense of or orient ourselves to what may be coming and therefore what we should do.
That's terrific. I'm really curious about all the kinds of things that we're now talking about that is on everyone's lips, things like AI, machine learning, digitization. What is the role of proximity in these areas?
Well, I mean, all those things you mentioned, Sree, are helping to drive proximity in different industries. So related to the book itself, there was a pivotal moment in people's ability to understand what it was Kaihan and I were talking about. That was the launch of ChatGPT. So before ChatGPT to the public, obviously it had been in development for some time. Before that, if you needed a crappy speech for something, you had to agonize in front of a blank screen for hours, and then you had a crappy speech. Then ChatGPT launched in November of 2022, and all of a sudden you put a prompt in, and seconds later, you have a crappy speech. Now, it's up to you to edit it, to make sure it's what you want to say, but that is an example of a tangible, visceral, even shocking at the time. It's not shocking anymore, but shocking at the time example of proximity. That blank screen is sitting there doing nothing from your perspective as a user. Now, we know that there are servers in Iceland or something running around in the background in the cloud. That's fine. But from my perspective as a user, that screen's blank. It's doing nothing until the moment of demand. When I ask it to say something, bang, it throws back a full speech. And so that started to give people the ability to understand what it was we were talking about.
Yeah, maybe I'll just build on that a little bit. If we we contrast that to what happened before ChatGPT, right? You wanted a crappy speech, you would search for one. That one was written months and months and months ago and was on a website that it pulled up and gave to you. So there we had the production of the crappy speech happening far away and very and earlier. And so that is one example of what we mean when the value gets created, not only faster, not only I can get you that speech faster, but actually gets created closer to. And that's the big breakthrough.
Folks, you are listening to a conversation about this important new book, Proximity, and talking to Rob and Kaihan. We want to get your questions in as early as possible. We're seeing comments come in from around the world. Joe Wheeler says, hello from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Rob, nice haircut. And I think we're ready for your speaking tour. And Julie is watching from Evanston, Illinois, near both the schools that Rob's part of. And we have Mukul watching from Lawrence, New Jersey, Frank from Dusseldorf. We've got people from all over the world. Tell us about your questions about proximity. Tell us if you've had a chance to get the book yet. It's just out, folks. Order it from your favorite bookstore. Get it. Give it to a friend. We want people to be able to use this. Truls is watching from Oslo, Norway, and congrats on the book launch, Truls says. And so we've got Chicago in the house, a lot of people here from Chicago, and we are just so thrilled to have you all here. We want to tell you that this book has gotten such great reviews, including from Shelley Palmer, who we all know is a great person to understand all kinds of new technology. And he says simply, Wolcott and Krippendorff nailed it. Proximity is like reading great science fiction, except that it's real and happening so fast. So let me ask you, Kaihan, those of us who are dealing in business every day with such real complicated topics, hearing a book is like science fiction might be, a little scary. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing is if we imagine business as you have a customer, you sense what they need, and then you produce what they need, right? That cycle of sensing to producing. What we're seeing is big changes happening there. First of all, the customer is becoming a digital customer. We know not only that they bought coffee last month, but we can know when they make the coffee. So therefore, what time they wake up, how much coffee they make. So therefore, how many people do they have? And so we start getting a lot more information about our customers. So we need to move from thinking about customers as being single data points to being an ongoing flow of data. That's enabled by IoT devices. That's enabled by digitization of products, by increasing frequency of interactions. And then the ability to deliver now at a customized level has always been on the digital side. We've been able to deliver more customized experiences, whether that is the podcast, whether that is the online course. We can now deliver that as needed. So the course can be cut up into packets, as Rob calls it, and we can deliver a customized course. Or the podcast, maybe you don't listen to a podcast, maybe you just talk to ChatGPT and it is creating the podcast real time for you. But what's fascinating is now even the physical products are getting into the game. As we can move with robotics to produce smaller runs of products in smaller factories that therefore can be placed closer to the villages and towns where people are, when we can then enable those with 3D printers that allow us to on Monday produce a knife and on Tuesday produce an auto part. It allows us to now create greater proximity on the physical side. So we see this sensing and delivering getting faster and faster and faster.
Yeah,
amazing.
Sree, I'd like to respond to a question that Hari Sripati, hi Hari, posted. And his question had to do with proximity can drive far more sustainable businesses. And by the way, when we're talking about sustainability, we mean business models that are more economical, more competitive. That's within reach as a result of proximity. Not just because it's a good thing to do, right thing to do, but also because it's economically viable. But he also makes the point that we could end up driving proximity in not so sustainable ways. So let's back up from that. One thing we know about human beings, and I've learned this from Howard Tallman many years ago, humans want what they want, where and when they want it. And those that can give it to them over time tend to win. Now, in the industrial age, we did all that we could do in order to make that happen. But that meant producing it months in advance, maybe thousands of miles away, putting it on a ship, doing what we call demand planning, making sure, hoping that we had the right number of each product in inventory. And so that when Hari or Rick or Ada buys something, it's there. That's companies trying to achieve proximity, but in an industrial age model. With digital technologies, we're able to do more and more of that. And as Kaihan just pointed out, even with physical products, where we will increasingly be able to do more and more of that in a sustainable way. But we could also do it in a, let's say, not so sustainable way. I'll give you a tangible example right now that is a great provocation and really kind of disappointing, but it's called Temu or Temu, Shine, Sheen. I don't even know how to pronounce them. But in any case, and this was pointed out to be our good friend Janet Ginsburg, science journalist, longtime collaborator. So with Temu, you get a certain sense of proximity. I can order one sweater that can be made for me at a factory in China, and then they make it and they put it on a cargo jet, and they get it to me within a relatively short period of time from China. Now, that's an example of proximity. Putting that stuff on a cargo jet and sending it to me really cheap. I'm not sure how sustainable that is, though. If you look at the percentage of trans-Pacific cargo jet traffic right now, a shocking percentage of that traffic right now is taken up by small orders from these fast fashion companies. And by the way, there's another little wrinkle here. I expect in the next couple of years, this wrinkle will be assailed by policy, by the industry, and that is something in international trade called de minimis. So part of what Temu is doing is taking advantage of the de minimis rule, which is, I believe, if it's under an $800 value, you can actually import it without trade duties. So the trade duties that affect everybody else when they put lots of copies on a ship or in a plane and move it in, those are often eliminated when you have a very small order. So it's not just technology or the things they're leveraging. They're also leveraging a peculiarity of trade law. And I have a feeling in the next couple of years, that might come up for consideration. So to Hari's point, we can do proximity to drive dramatically better sustainability, like with rooftop solar, like with autonomous vehicles that will come in the not distant future, or we can do it in a way that is actually deleterious for our future.
Folks, thank you for all the questions and comments coming in. Anat says, congrats from LA. My book arrived on Saturday. Can't wait to read. Tony from Boston in the virtual campfire is asking about the Audible version. And I know, Rob, that the publisher is working on the Audible version. And so that's coming soon. So everyone, please stay tuned for that. Carolyn's watching from Shingle Springs, El Dorado County. So many congrats coming from all over, including from Prama watching from LA. And Corey's telling us that Corey returned from Puerto Rico, where proximity was in full effect, distributed energy, virtual power plants, solar panels everywhere. And Per Engel is watching from Norway. So many folks watching. Tell us your questions. Rick has promised to order today. Decentralization of energy could use this brand. And that's right, folks. If you can think of your organization, your company, any nonprofit you're part of that would want to hear about this conversation, please invite Kaihan and Rob to join you and participate and talk to your colleagues about the ideas in proximity. There are so many good things that we can discuss and learn together. I want to ask about something that we're all concerned about. Kaihan, tell us about the future of work and what proximity means for that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We started digging into proximity applied to, because we have chapters, how we work, how we eat, how we power, kind of going through the major sectors of human experience. And there's so many shifts or improvements or changes in the nature of work. So, if we could say, how do we get people from I don't know how to do this job to getting to do the job? The scaling of that can now be done much more quickly, so we can reduce the amount of time that it takes for someone to be good enough to perform a job. We also then see jobs breaking down into components. So we may not have jobs anymore or roles anymore, but we have tasks, right? And so what we can do is, this has been, OKRs, and the adoption of OKRs have been one mechanism by which we've seen this happen, of a role getting broken down to smaller pieces that then be assembled, and you kind of can create increasingly a customized job for the person, which then, going back to supply and demand, allows us to link talent with the work that needs to be done more accurately and more quickly. And I haven't talked about any of the technologies that also enable it. AI will certainly is certainly a big role. The ability to go out and search for talent, platform, open organizations, open talent platforms, and the percentage of talent that large companies utilize that are not employees but rather are at will employees has been growing, and for large enterprises, about 40%. So even the way that humans organize ourselves, instead of a centralized hierarchical model, what we're seeing is a decentralized model starting to take over. One that we write about in the book is Hire, the Chinese company. They've introduced this methodology they call Rendenhai, which is they've taken their hierarchy and they've broken it down into 4,000 micro enterprises, each fully complete teams, each with a CEO. The CEO can get voted out if they're not doing a good job. And then rather than requiring those micro enterprises to work with the head of the finance office or the marketing office or the technology offices, they break down those functional units into small teams that then have to sell their goods internally. So what we see now is a much more dynamic organization that is flexible, and where decision making is pushed out in greater proximity to the market. So anyway, I just threw out a bunch of stuff, but there are examples, many examples.
And everyone, please go through the book. You'll see great examples on just some of the examples he mentioned, and some ways of thinking about this. Kaihan, since you did mention the concept of AI, I thought this, which has been making the rounds today, Joanna Maciuska, who is a author and video game enthusiast, writes that I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, instead of AI to do art and writing so I can do laundry and dishes. So I'd like both to reflect on this idea. Maybe Rob, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I love this quip, and I get what people would feel from this quip, but actually it illustrates a lot about where this proximate world is going, because those things that are fully digitalizable, and in many ways aspects of art and writing are digitalizable, whereas doing laundry and dishes is not quite as digitalizable. That comes later, and it will be coming later. So we don't make any date predictions in the book, and Kaihan and I decided right up front we're not going to make date predictions. I love Ray Kurzweil. I'll let him make date predictions, but we know at some point this century we will have robots capable of doing all that stuff, and scaled at such a sense that they can be closer to us to do the laundry and the dishes. And but before that, we're going to have AI systems that can radically enhance our ability to create, to be generative, et cetera. And our challenge is to figure out how we leverage those tools and to collaborate with the AI systems in order to do things we could never have done before. And Sree, this was actually a part of the conversation we had at our twin launch event last week at the Harris Theater in Chicago. We had, all of us were on stage, the audience, everybody was on stage together in this creative space, talking about how AI might affect artists and performers, et cetera. And what we find is it allows us to do things we couldn't have even imagined before. And when you're in a space like that, new art forms, new mediums, and by the way, that is the correct grammar in the space of the arts. It drives me nuts. New mediums, et cetera, will arise as a result of this ferment. But I'd like to extend this work and arts to the social realm, because our good friend John Morris posted a question about what effect might proximity have on our social lives. Now, there's a nefarious intent in John's question too, because of course John Morris is the founder of Nowhere, which is a company I've happily invested in that is pushing the bounds of social interactions online. We talk about John and Nowhere in the book. But what I think is interesting to note is, while people will lament, well, being online with each other is not the same as being in person. Of course not. But it's a level of connectivity we didn't really have a decade ago. And in many ways, we didn't have it until COVID hit and more people were willing to get online. So what's exciting about that to me is, number one, that's going to get a lot better over the next couple of decades, such that, as we talk about in the final chapter of the book, such that you won't be able to tell the difference between virtual and default reality. By the way, this thing you're in right now, wherever you are, that's default reality, normal reality. We won't be able to tell the difference. But second, way before that point, what we call the post-virtual world, way before that point, we now have new ways to engage and interact, a layer of interactivity that we didn't really have some years ago. And we'll find some intended and unintended consequences. If you remember back to when printing became a big deal, on a printer, you had a computer and you could do everything on your Microsoft Office, etc. People started talking about the paperless future, the paperless office. Well, guess what happened? The demand for paper skyrocketed. Why is that? Counterintuitively for many people. Why is that? Well, because now every time I want to, I can push the button and print a physical copy. So we actually ended up digitalizing things and using more paper. Now, the demand for office paper is finally starting to top out, it seems, and slow down. And so the same thing is happening. I believe the same thing is happening right now with social relationships. We have the ability to have more meaningful social interactions online more often with people all over the world, as evidenced by this book launch. I've so far counted 15 countries represented here. And we can have some level of interaction. But what does that mean? That also means that I can't wait to get on a plane and go to Oslo to see Truls and Ingvar in Norway. I can't wait for my next visit to Helsinki to see Pia and her team at Kapman, or our friends in Rwanda, for instance. This is now possible. So it's actually counterintuitively generating more demand for people to get on planes and go in person to see each other. So there are a whole lot of implications of proximate technologies like this one that might at first seem counterintuitive.
We want to tell everyone that you can read more about the book at proximitybook.net, so that you can tell your friends, family, colleagues. It's a Next Big Idea Club must read, which is a great endorsement. And it's your GPS for the future. Make decisions based on where we're going rather than where we've already been. I want to do a shout out to Jaron, who says hello from the heart of Silicon Valley, especially to Kellogg alums everywhere. And Saeed and Farhad watching from Bangladesh. And we want to tell you that there's a Kellogg Alumni Club of LA event for Proximity, June 11th. So please look for that. As we already mentioned, Rob is involved both with Kellogg and with Booth. And we should point out that the book itself is published by Columbia Business School. So if you can just get this book into the hands of those three schools' alums, folks, you're set for life, Kaihan and Rob. But this requires work. So we're all going to support the book. Tell your friends. Please tell them to get the book, to learn from these two great authors. And this is why everyone's been noticing Rob's haircut. This is what standard imaging looks like. And now he is a little bit different. We have a question from Lavanya, who says, can you please touch upon the impact of manufacturing companies, trade tariffs versus the cost of local production and meeting the demands of large retailers? And I would just like to add to that. We saw in the crisis in Baltimore that it doesn't take a pandemic to affect the supply chain, to affect how things, manufacturing companies deal with issues like this. So can maybe Kaihan, you start us off on that, and then
Yeah.
go to more questions. I also want to tell everybody we only have about 30 minutes left, so we're going to do faster questions, faster answers.
Yeah, I think that there's both a push and pull. There is the cost and the pain that we've experienced through supply chain disruption that's driven by a number of factors. It's driven by just changes in weather patterns, geopolitical uncertainty, the pandemic, of course. And so there's a heightened sensitivity to kind of the when you try to predict what the cost will be to maintain a non-proximate supply chain. The probability of there being an issue has increased. So the predicted cost of maintaining a long supply chain increases. And then on the other side, what we see a greater demand for more customized, personalized, and quick solutions means that people want it and they expect to have it sooner the way they want it. So you have both push and pull, economic push and pull, leading to it making more sense to provide a proximate solution. When Elon Musk was figuring out how he was going to access batteries for Tesla, what he realized was that the materials were produced somewhere in Africa, then they were shipped to somewhere in Japan and assembled, and then they went through Europe, then they went through the Panama Canal, and then they got to us. And just the supply chain didn't make sense. So we're going to see across sectors, we're going to see the calculus changing, and it is going to become more economical and create greater advantage to create more proximate supply.
Yeah, if I could add, thanks, Kaihan. If I could add to that quickly, to Lavenia's question about manufacturing companies, I'd start recognizing there are two very different situations. One would be a brand new company trying to figure out a new supply chain and approach. Another would be an incumbent, somebody that already has lots of factories, well-developed supply chain. And this would manifest a little bit differently. For the incumbents, there's a great opportunity. And that is to look at all of the components, look at the flow of your global supply chain and ask yourself, where are the biggest risks? Not just the ones where you experience stockouts of key parts and et cetera, but also where maybe things have been going fine for a long time in specific inputs, but what if? What if there's an extreme climate event that knocks out one of your two suppliers in Thailand? What if there's a geopolitical challenge that prevents you from getting things through the Red Sea? Not that that would ever happen, but these things are happening more frequently. So when you find those opportunities, you can identify specific needs for specific inputs, parts, assemblies, whatever. And then you can say, okay, what's the economic value right now of introducing, say, 3D printing into my manufacturing facility, just in case? Just to give you a tangible, Ford Motor Company in their annual report for 2022, their annual report published in 23, said that they produced over 200,000 parts for automotive via 3D printing. Now, they're not producing an entire car with 3D printing right now, of course not, but they're finding specific points where it's dramatically more economically viable and it also decreases their risk to have those capabilities distributed and available on a moment's notice. And guess what's going to happen? Just like all disruptive technologies, they'll get better. They'll figure out how to use them. There's a high learning curve here. And then you'll start to, over time, see it cascade across the entire supply chain.
Hi, everybody. You are watching the launch party for Proximity, this amazing book by Kaihan and Rob. We are talking about various aspects of the book. I want to go to the very beginning and the foreword by the legendary Phil Kotler, professor of marketing emeritus at the Kellogg School. And he says, the implications of proximity will be felt for years to come. Opportunity awaits. But he also says there's a dark side. We see humans can be encouraged to desire things that perhaps aren't best for us, our fellow humans, or for the planet. So Kaihan, talk about that a little bit, the dark side of all this proximity.
Yeah, I think humans are not necessarily good decision makers, and we can see that in the decisions that we made and the consequences they've had on society and the environment, on ourselves, right? Whether there are a number of biases that we have that make us bad decision makers. So having some friction allows us to slow down. Hey, maybe I don't want to pick up that drink because I just have to walk across the room to get a drink, right? But as the things that we want can be available right there, it can lead us and make it easy for us to make bad decisions. So that's one thing we say in proximity. This is not people sometimes think that what we're saying is we can make this happen and it will be a good thing. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is this is going to happen and it may not be a good thing. It could be a good thing, but it's our choice to decide how it evolves. So yeah, there's a lot there.
Well, to be fair, every technology can be good and bad depending on how we as humans deploy it. We've seen that with AI already and so many other things. With so many questions coming in, folks. Rick puts in a plug for getting the hair back, the long hair of Rob, but also asks for the meaning of proximity for the space field. And I'm just going to add in here that Pablo wants to know thoughts related to Star Trek and the replicator. Holodeck. Yeah. So let's put that all in together for Rob.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate that Rick would comment on my hair, being another esteemed middle-aged white guy. By the way, just to clear the air, I don't typically grow my hair out in order to grow my hair out. It's not really a fashion statement. It's just that I don't get around to going to the hairdresser. And I try to do it just before the summer. So hopefully we can put this to rest. Regarding space, of course, Rick Tumlinson would ask that question, because if you don't know Rick, you don't know probably the best connected person in the entire space race is Rick. In fact, he's probably already been to Mars a couple of times. He's just not letting on. So back when we were doing research for the book, even before COVID, I had a conversation with our good friend Dorit de Noviel. Dorit is a professor of space health at Baylor. Now, first of all, that's a cool title, professor of space health, and it's a real thing. She runs a grant program for NASA to invest in research to help humans thrive in space, which is not obvious. It's very challenging. And as I was explaining proximity, she said, oh my gosh, Rob, everything we're developing to allow humans to be in space is to drive proximity. She said, when you're on a spaceship for 7 months to Mars, you've only got what's on board. So whatever it is, you better have it there. You can't call Amazon. I mean, not yet. I'm sure that'll come. But so the space race is actually one of the catalysts for driving our ability to understand what's possible using technology. Because in some cases with defense and NASA and ESA and all, they're often not as budget constrained as a for-profit company would be for a while. And they can experiment with crazy far out stuff because, by the way, space is crazy and far out. So they have to do that. But over time, some of those things will knock on back to Earth, like Interstellar Lab, our great friend Barbara Belvisi, who founded a company to understand how to grow food on Mars, and they're making a ton of progress. She was with us last week in Chicago to announce that they're making extraordinary progress to grow specialized plant products in optimal conditions right here on Earth in manufacturing facilities. Their biggest clients are Robertech, L'Oreal, Firmenich. So these pods that she and her team have built and optimize and manage remotely and analyze by AI, they're growing exactly the plants required by L'Oreal for specific high value, low volume input ingredients in their manufacturing plants exactly where and when they need them. So space is already coming back to Earth, and we have the opportunity to make life a lot better.
I like the sound of that. Thank you so much. Rick has just put in his LinkedIn link. I hope all of you will share yours. This is such a great group. Only Rob and Kaihan could get such a fascinating group of people just listening in on a Monday afternoon. So thank you all of you for doing that. Matt's put in his as well. Everybody, please continue to do that. We have about 20 minutes left, and we want to let you know that anyone in Chicago, there's a proximity event with Professor Wolcott on June 20th. Rohini is sending us the information. You can register right on the Eventbrite link that's there. If you're watching a recording of this, there's still so much to learn. And of course, proximitybook.net. tell your friends. We have lots of questions coming in here. I would like to ask a little bit about how we think about using the concepts of proximity in healthcare, and where do we go from that? Okay.
We found that like in any sector, a helpful starting point is to ask, what does P equals 0 look like? The moment that a need emerges, the solution or the value that meets that need is not only created but delivered at that moment. So, but health is really interesting, right? Because you're sick not at the doctor's office, you're sick at home. So what we should see is we should see home delivery of care. And in the book, we have offer several already being adopted, interesting solutions around home delivery of care. But what's especially interesting about healthcare is the opportunity to have predictive care, to have you deliver care before it's needed. In other words, preventative care. So I think that we will see, and one of the people that we interviewed that's sort of an innovator in the space, his vision is the hospital becomes a much smaller building that just is used for some specialized equipment that it's not yet economical to replicate at the home, but all other care should be delivered where patients are. Yeah. And Rob has some great other examples of what's happening in healthcare as well.
Well, thanks for that, Kaihan. This is my second favorite chapter in the book. The first favorite being the concluding chapter about space and VR, because it's the most crazy out there. But it's my second favorite chapter because there's a personal story that we share. My father died in 2004 at the age of 63 over an aortal aneurysm. Totally unexpected. He had just had a full physical 2 months before. The doctor said to him, and I quote, my dad shared this with me. He said, the doctor said to him, "Whatever you're doing, Bob, keep it up. You're in great shape." 2 months later, he was dead. And I reflect back on that, and these things like a Garmin or a Fitbit or a Ring, they're pretty rudimentary today. But where will they be in 5 years, in 10 years? Imagine a not distant future where every aspect of our lived system is being monitored every moment of the day. And there are AI systems in the background mining those weak signals. And it sees a few weak signals and it sends you a note, sends me a note and says, "Hey, Rob, go to the doctor," or the doctor will come to you, who knows. Go to the doctor. There's something we need to work on. I go and the doctor says, "Rob, it looks like you have stage 0 pancreatic cancer. It's not a big deal. We can handle that. Here's what we need to do." Compare that to today. Today, you wait until you've got horrible symptoms. You're doubled over in pain. You go to the doctor. They do some tests, and they say, "Rob, you've got stage 4 pancreatic cancer. There isn't much we can do about it." So this is why in the book, Kaihan and I say, in terms of healthcare, proximity compels, not just is good for, compels. Proximity compels healthcare from curing things to preventing things. It'll be far more effective and efficient and economical in the long run. And we have the potential to live far better lives. So that's where proximity is going to take us. It's going to disappear into our daily lives and monitor us at every moment and head things off before they're even a problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have 15 minutes left. We are getting lots of comments. And by the way, look at this instant community you've built, Rob and Kaihan, of people sharing their LinkedIns. Everybody, please connect with each other. We've also shared Rob and Kaihan's LinkedIn, so please be sure to follow and connect with them as well. Chantra says, "Congrats. Voices are growing in conversation via a hosted podcast. I think of the magic of all these great conversations in proximity to one another and solving massive problems, a catalyst for new ideas and solutions." Thank you. That's such an interesting way of thinking about this. You had mentioned the book, the chapters in the book. I want to focus on how we eat in a moment, but just want to tell everyone else the other chapters include accelerating towards P equals 0. P, of course, is proximity, how we work, how we eat, how we prevent and cure. And you just heard some great examples there, and how we create and produce, and how we power, and how we defend. And the proximity space is the final chapter, but let's go to how we eat. Kaihan, you are somebody who creates community through food and gatherings, in-person time together. So talk about that.
Yeah, no, if people who know me from my Instagram, my personal Instagram, I just post food. I'm infatuated with food and delicious, creative, beautiful food. So that was my favorite chapter to work on. If we go way back in time, like food was very local. You grew what was near you, and we could say that the society was made possible when we could start growing food in closer proximity. We would find seeds and we would forage for them, and then some of them fell near our village, and then behold, those seeds grew, and now we had food close to us. So we no longer had to travel. So we could say the proximity of food created like modern, human society. It starts getting bad for a while, and we start growing food in large farms far away. We instead of having many different types of strains of potatoes, we had only a few. We had famines. We had unhealthy food. We had processed food, and a lot of, going back to healthcare, a lot of our physical issues have to do with the fact that our food supply chain is not proximate. And now there's the opportunity to improve that. 38% of food produced in the world is wasted. And yet there are people starving. The reason it's wasted primarily is that it gets rotten before it reaches where it needs to be, or we're not able to coordinate the different parts of the supply chain, right? A truck pulls up at a grocery store with fruit, but the grocery store didn't know they were coming, so they don't unload it quickly enough. That grocery store doesn't know that it's Thursday and fewer people are going to buy tomatoes, so we should take our tomatoes and cut them up and make a tomato salad, but they can't predict that. So it's really a prediction and coordination problem across the entire supply chain. And so if we can improve that, we can tackle this 38% loss. And there are some companies, A-Fresh Technology is one of the ones that we feature in the book. And what they've done is they are creating the ability to track and with AI get better at predicting across the supply chain what's getting grown, what's getting harvested, what's in storage, what's getting shipped, what's in the grocery store, what people are going to buy. And by doing that, they can reduce the wastage. That's a proximity solution.
Thank you. We have just a few minutes left, and people connecting with each other, sharing, talking, giving us ideas. And John Morris says, please, can we speed up the medical parts of this, please? And we have a question here about education, and it comes from Mukul Pandya, who just retired from one of the other great business schools that we haven't mentioned here today, at Wharton. And he asks about the implications that proximity has for education.
Great.
Yeah,
Well,
Nicole,
I'll
it's
throw
great
in
to
a
have
quick
you
answer. Yeah, Kaihan, but Kaihan, go ahead.
No. I just know Nicole, so I'm just saying thank you for being here.
The guy with two business school appointments gets to answer that.
Well,
Yes.
Kaihan does a lot of teaching too, but from Wharton and down in Florida. So, I think proximity. I'm quite sure proximity will have to do with both the micro level, being able to be ever more micro, ever more in the moment. What do I need, where, and when I need it? But if we only focus on, I just use an analog, people will often say, well, your video needs to be no more than 1 minute because people can't handle more than 1 minute. Well, you know what? If you're trying to slog through Heidegger, there's really not much you can do in 1 minute, I hate to say. So there is going to be more about skills, knowledge, enhancement, support in the moment, where and when I need it, for sure. And that's very exciting. But I'd also add, there'll be a lot more longer term implications of proximity in the deeper and broader explorations that we desire to do as humans. And I'll just give you a quick example from my own personal experience. Earlier this year, I was experimenting with ChatGPT 4 and with Pi and a couple other generative AI systems. And I asked them to tell me what you think about post-virtual. And this is a concept that Moran Cerf and I invented about the post-virtual world. And at first, a couple of them said, well, I'm not sure what that is, which was nice that they were honest, different than a lot of academics would be. But then I threw a prompt and a link in there and say, here's what we mean. And then I started asking them what philosophical traditions could help us navigate in this coming post-virtual world. And they all returned philosophers who are actually relevant, some of whom I've already spent a lot of time with trying to understand, and a couple of whom I didn't even know about. So when I reflected on that experience, I realized any expert anywhere can throw in queries to a large language model and have a conversation. Now, they're not going to hear the God's truth. They're going to hear hallucinations. It's up to them to go check and verify. But I could have asked it about existential philosophy. And then the next sentence said, tell me about Southeast Asian architecture. And it could have at least somewhat competent conversation with me. How many human beings can do that? So you can have proximate access to a catalyst, a thought starter, a challenger, an idea generator anywhere, anytime. So the implications for education, there are also big downsides. We all can think of those. But I think over the long run, it's a profound and a profoundly better space.
Thank you, Rob. Kaihan.
Yeah, no, I mean, McCool was asked by Wharton many years ago to create the Wharton's answer to Harvard Business Review, right? And he decided to make it all digital. And I think that leap is what we are going to experience now. I mean, spending 2 years or 4 years in a classroom to store information and then apply it is not a proximate way to learn, right? So I think we see and where we're seeing that is alternative paths. Like you can learn as you go, you can learn as needed, and you should always be learning what you need to know when you need to know it. Of course, you need to have enough space to be able to actually learn, and we need to have greater connectivity with people so that you can get mentorship. We need to have connections, but I think that there's an opportunity to rethink education because our current educational system is designed for a non-proximate delivery of education.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left and lots of comments still coming in and people are connecting. We love when that happens. One of the things that we've heard here is from Martin, I want a 3-hour podcast of at least a few verticals that proximity will be playing hard role in over time. Proximity will keep on giving. So they're giving you a project to do, gentlemen, things that you can work on.
Let's do that.
Stefan says food waste is such a disgusting and depressing matter, but this discussion is providing me with hope. And that's something we don't get a lot of in our days. So thank you for that. And John says, so great to see so many familiar folks tuning in today. Congratulations to Kaihan and Rob and everyone who brought this book into the world. And that's an important point. It isn't just these two folks. So I'm going to give them each a chance to shout out a few friends and family and colleagues as you do at a book launch, if this were a glass of champagne instead of a certain
Great.
Rob, I'll let you. I've got too many names in my head to sort through.
Kaihan Sree has thrown a landmine in front of us because as John pointed out, there are so many people who made this possible. We put as many of them as we could in the acknowledgments, but I'll do a general shout out to Twin, the World Innovation Network, and so many Twinians on the session today. I mean, what maybe you don't know is I've been selfishly building and maintaining this community so I can learn from you. So we can keep the band together and I can sit around and listen to John Morris talk about crazy stuff in the metaverse and Rick Tomlinson about flying in space and Dorit Denoviel trying to figure out how to operate on people when they're on Mars, just crazy stuff, but also the people in Twin who are making the stuff happen right now, all the people I just mentioned, but people who are executives who are having to make decisions about AI, about staffing as a result of radical changes. And this is one of the reasons I was so excited to work with Kaihan, because the Outthinker network is a network of senior executives who face these questions every day, but who also want to make sure they're looking further out. And that's the kind of person that I want to spend my time with.
Yeah, and I would also thank again the Outthinker Network members, heads of strategy, head of innovation. We learned a lot from them, and a lot of the ideas and encouragement came through the conversations that we had with them. Also at Columbia University Press, Miles and Brian, they saw this as something before other people saw it and gave us a chance to do that. The Stuart and Des at Thinkers 50 as well, very early on, helped us craft this concept as something that would be make sense for people. And Corey, who's here with us, she had a lot to do with the project. It took 2.5 years of constant calls and research and writing, and she was really the center of that.
Well, I'd like to actually turn it back to you, Sree. You are the definition of a digital luminary. And it's kind of nice how that metaphor works, isn't it? Because digital is electrons. Anyway, what's your reaction in thinking about and seeing this concept of proximity and preparing for our conversation today? Anything strike you?
Yeah, absolutely. This idea of P equals 0, proximity equals 0, the role it is playing in a lot of big book ideas, as we know, are things that we have maybe thought about or just kind of in the periphery somewhere. But what's special about what you have done is show us an actionable set of ideas and examples so that we can think about it in our own businesses. And so I would, as we start to wrap up here, ask how people can get involved, what they can do to be part of Twin, to be part of Outthinker, and what they should be thinking about the book. And just so you understand how important this book is, the great Mohan Sawhney, who is another legendary professor who's at Kellogg, he says that proximity shows us how to win. And Wolcott and Krippendorff have written the innovator's dilemma for the coming decades. And we know Clay Christensen of Harvard, his innovator's dilemma was a book that made so many careers and helped people understand the world. You have done this with this book, which is an extraordinary comment and recognition of your work. So as we start to wrap up, give us how we can get involved and also some final thoughts for the book and how people can support what you're doing. We'll start with Kaihan.
Yeah, I would say we do have the aspiration of building something around the book. The best way to start engaging is to join and follow Twin, to join and follow Outthinker. And if we start seeing enough kind of excitement there, then we might create something that is like a proximity group. So we're open to creating that. But right now, the two entry paths are either Twin or Outthinker. And the last thing I would just offer for people who are looking at this from a business perspective is P equals 0 is where your industry is going. You don't need to get it there right now. Even just a small step in that direction, asking, what could I do now to step into that future early? Just a small answer there can give you a huge competitive advantage.
Great. I love that, Kaihan. I'd add one more thing. My personal purpose for the rest of this year is to share proximity with as many people as possible, especially decision makers faced with creating the future. And I'm particularly eager to reach out to people in developing environments, developing countries, because they have the opportunity to leapfrog. They have, instead of let's build a massive power plant and have to get billions of dollars in many years to get that to fruition, how about we think about distributed energy resources, which are scalable in a modular way and make them more resilient, more adaptable? It's already possible. So any ideas you have, I'm always on LinkedIn. Reach out. If we don't know each other already, just mention we met on this webinar, and I'm eager to talk with you about how to share the proximity message.
Amazing, amazing. Matthew says, great conversation. Would welcome getting this recording if that'll be available. And
yes.
I'm sure the answer is yes. We'll get that out there. Matt says, great to reconnect, Rob. You never cease to fill me with hope. Syed says, thank you guys. Must buy and share knowledge. So everyone get the book, proximitybook.net, or go to your favorite bookstore. John has just got all the emojis in one place, but someone points out, Rob says not enough emojis, and all these great comments coming in. Corey tells us that Kaihan also has been training a network of coaches and consultants to guide companies on proximity strategy. So there's a link there as well. Joe says, thanks, Rob and Kaihan. Congrats on an excellent launch and introduction to proximity. Hoping to make it to the next Twin meeting. And so many great comments coming in. We don't have time because it's time for us to go. We wish you all the very best. We can't believe it's already June, folks. It's time goes quickly in these days. And just remember, everybody, go out and get Rob Wolcott and Kaihan Krippendorff's Proximity: How Coming Breakthroughs in Just-in-Time Transform Business, Society, and Daily Life. With that, we'll say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
you.
Sree. Thanks,
Thank you,
Kaihan.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sree.